Is this a funeral dirge or a stage meeting? Hello, Rabbi. Hi, Donna. Hello, Rabbi Knight.
Hi, how are you, Michael? How are you?
I'm good. I'm good.
So many great faces.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm muting to say good morning also. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Hello.
Morning.
Good morning.
Thank you, Tracy.
Good morning.
Good
Good
morning.
morning, everyone.
Morning. Your face is not being seen.
Well, I thought you were going to sit on the couch. I'll move over.
There you go.
Good morning, everyone. I'm so glad to have everyone here, and it is 11:01, and we're going to allow for just a few more seconds for people to join in and join online, and really glad to have everyone here. And we'll get started in just a second.
I was curious how many people saw Noah Tishby last night from the Federation.
There were 200 people RSVP'd for the session, and by the time I spoke, they were at like 125 or 150. But then sorry, I didn't realize I was someone had muted me. There are 200 people RSVP'd for the session, and then about 125 by the time I moved over from the speaker side to the sort of just general participant side. So I don't know how many people actually ended up showing up, but I thought she did great, and Jonathan Friedman, who's a member of Temple Bethel and leader of the Federation, did a fabulous job. Which is a great entree as we're gonna get started. So first off, thank you everyone for being here. I am deeply appreciative of your attendance, and boy, this the subject matter this year, it could not be more prescient and more appropriate. As a brief reminder, tomorrow evening, the Jewish Federation of Greater Charlotte has sponsored a program with Yossi Klein Halevi about Zionism from his perspective, and you don't want to miss this. Yossi Klein Halevi is a really phenomenal scholar. His letter, his book Letters to My Palestinian Neighbors, has been translated into Arabic and read widely in Arabic, and it is really a great thing that we have him as a speaker within our community. So very, very happy about that. And the clergy of the and the rabbis and the cantors of various urban synagogues in the Charlotte region are going to be also participating and helping to conduct some conversations in breakout sessions. So that's happening tomorrow evening. Also, I wanted to say we had planned a special evening to have an evening around fighting anti-Semitism, and actually like specific ways in which we can fight anti-Semitism. We have been trying to coordinate with the Anti-Defamation League, the ADL. As you can imagine, this last week they have been up to their eyeballs and lots of things going on, whether on the coasts and everywhere in between. We're still trying to plan that with them, and so we will work with Harry and with Sage and Spice leadership to be able to communicate when we can get that programmed and have that planned. And as soon as we have that information, we will get it to you and make sure that you can participate in this. Today, I have two things to say. One is my deepest sense of thanks to Donna. Donna Tarney has been as an educator in our community and with the Greenspan Center is a real gem for the Charlotte region, and I could not be more thankful to have Donna, your leadership, your partnership, your friendship, and all of this. And so, thank you for helping us to see through Sage this year, and for teaching us, and as our teacher, we thank you. And also, I am super thankful, and I know that there'll be more introduction in a second, but to have my colleague, Rabbi Stuart Gershon. Stuart is, for those who don't know, he's a rabbi's rabbi, and is the type of rabbi who is constantly encouraging his colleagues to be healthy and to have proper boundaries, but also how to care for and support a community. And our community is richer because of Stuart's presence in our community. And Rabbi Gershon, I am so happy that you're with us and teaching us today. So thank you for being here today. With that, I will give it to Harry.
Good morning. Welcome to our last scheduled session on the connection between anti-Semitism and white nationalism. I'd like to thank our teachers for the valuable in-depth learning that we've received so far. I hope that you received the email with the reading material and had a chance to look at it. Also in that email was a link to a course evaluation survey, and I hope that you'll complete it. So now I'll turn it over to our teachers.
Is that my cue? Okay, there I am. Okay. Well, good morning, everybody. Great to see you all. And I want to thank Rabbi Knight, Donna Tarney, and the SAGE group for this invitation to address the issue of anti-Semitism. As Rabbi Knight said, the timing is all too appropriate. I do want to give a big shout out to Donna for all her invaluable assistance with the slide deck, and to Tracy for administrating the Zoom and all the pre-readings and all that good stuff. Look, as we all know, the alarming resurgence of modern anti-Semitism is coming simultaneously from the far right and the far left. Our goal this morning is to arrive at a deeper understanding of white supremacy and how white supremacist ideology fuels anti-Semitism within the far right. And before we get started with the slides, as per Donna's wise suggestion to me, I do want to give everybody a heads up that we are going to see unsettling anti-Semitic words and images. So I want to encourage everyone, please gird yourself and buckle up. Okay, slide 1. Okay, there we go. Okay, almost all far-right movements subscribe to some kind of toxic brew of anti-Semitic narratives and stereotypes. But white supremacy's animosity toward Jews goes much deeper than that. Anti-Semitism is a chief cornerstone of white supremacist ideology and worldview. Next slide, please. White nationalist Greg Johnson openly admitted as such when he remarked, if you look to your right, one cannot defeat an enemy one will not name. Therefore, white nationalism is inescapably anti-Semitic. So notice that Greg Johnson is a very well-known white nationalist. For him, Jews are the enemy, and therefore the white nationalist movement is inescapably anti-Semitic. Strong words. Indeed, white supremacist ideology reserves a special hatred for Jews. When the avowed white supremacist Robert Bowers opened fire at the Tree of Life synagogue, he reportedly shouted, "All Jews must die." Next slide. No less chilling are the conclusions of distinguished University of Michigan historian Alexandra Minna Stern. In her masterful work, Proud Boys in the White Ethno-State, Stern writes, anti-Semitism is a ferocious black hole in the alt-right cosmos, and no conversation about the ethno-state can proceed very far without the demonization and dehumanization of Jews. Clearly, there is much to unpack here. So this is our agenda. And let's go to slide 4. Let's define white supremacy, identify 4 key components of white supremacist ideology and worldview, illustrate white supremacists' overt neo-Nazi expressions, trace the white supremacist embrace of long-standing Christian, medieval, modern, and Nazi anti-Semitic tropes, explore what is the dominant modern white supremacist conspiracy theory of white extinction, that the white race is going extinct, and alleged Jewish complicity. Outline current white supremacist formulations that Jews are the primary enemy of the white race. Sorry to that you have to hear that, but it is the case. I'd like to offer some concluding observations about the danger that white supremacist anti-Semitism presents, and then we will devote the remainder of our time to Q&A. So I'm going to ask everyone to please indulge me. We're going to hold questions at the very end. I have a lot of content for you. I think it's very important that you see the whole thing from A to Z. So if you have a question, jot it down, remember that thought, and I will try to get to every single one of them during Q&A. All right, let's dive in. What is white supremacy? We all need to understand that white supremacy is a racist ideology, just like Nazism. And in fact, we might even talk about white supremacism to help us understand, rather than white supremacy, that we are dealing with a racist ideology. In white supremacist discourse, the white race is genetically and culturally superior to all other races. The white race is entitled to dominate and control all other inferior races. The purity of the white race necessitates absolute racial separation, ideally in a whites-only ethno-state, which is where that whole issue, the whole idea of a white ethno-state comes in for the purpose of racial purity. The white race faces an imminent threat of apocalyptic extinction. Next slide. It should come, therefore, as no surprise that white supremacy's vision for America is totally exclusionary. At the conclusion of a 2016 conference in Washington, D.C., alt-right leader Richard Spencer claimed that America's founding fathers wanted a white America. America was, until this past generation, a white country designed for ourselves and our posterity. It is our creation, it is our inheritance, and it belongs to us. I want everyone to understand what the white supremacist vision then is. It is really clear. Non-whites are not Americans. They cannot be citizens. People of color do not belong. The ultimate fantasy, I should add, the quite violent ultimate fantasy of white supremacist ideology is to overthrow the United States government and to establish in its place a separatist, whites-only ethno-state by forcibly removing and, if necessary, eliminating all non-whites. So now we have an idea of what white supremacy really is. Side by side with all these racist expressions, white supremacy manifests extreme anti-Semitic sentiments. White supremacist anti-Semitism openly and proudly venerates Hitler, glorifies Nazi symbols and the Holocaust, even as it endorses Holocaust denial. Next slide, please. By now, you must have seen this famous image of white supremacists wearing Camp Auschwitz sweatshirts at the January 6th assault on the Capitol. Next slide. These images reflect the hate-filled and violent white supremacist intentions for Jews. On the left, gas 'em all is kind of clear, right? But you might not be familiar with the white supremacist acronym on the right. Does anybody know what 6MWE stands for? If you do, just unmute yourself and shout it out.
6 million.
6 million weren't enough.
Right, 6 million wasn't enough. Next slide. Here is an example of white supremacist Holocaust denial. As you see, the Holocaust is referred to as a hollow hoax, a fraud perpetrated by Jews to extract sympathy and lots of cash from the world. I want on the left side, I want you particularly to pay attention. Note the proximity, the literal proximity, the physical proximity between the Nazi swastika and white power. These are related physically and ideologically. As many historians and Jewish organizations have pointed out, these examples of white supremacist anti-Semitism are not new. In 2017, white supremacist anti-Semitism was already on full display at the Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville. As you may know, the white supremacist marchers raised their arms in Nazi-style salutes, shouted Sieg Heil, carried swastika flags, wielded torches, and intimidated the Jews celebrating Shabbat morning services at Congregation Beth Israel. They chanted the slogan, "Jews will not replace us," whose true significance I will explain later on. It's more than you think, as well as blood and soil, which is a direct borrowing of the Nazi slogan, Blut und Boden. Next slide, please, Donna. What is the implication of shouting blood and soil? This is so important to understand. In historical context, Blut und Boden promoted the Nazi doctrine that because Jewish blood was not Aryan, Jews were foreigners, aliens living on German soil. The white supremacist marchers at Charlottesville were angrily declaring Jews once again to be foreigners, but this time aliens on American soil. Now let's turn our attention to white supremacy's adoption and dissemination of at least 7 classic anti-Semitic tropes. It's astounding. In her book, Culture Warlords, My Journey into the Dark Web of White Supremacy, journalist Talia Levin describes the experience of going undercover within the ecosystem of white supremacy. Hearing endless talk of hate, racial slurs, and violence, Levin concludes that anti-Semitism is not only the ideological linchpin of the white supremacist worldview. Levin finds that white supremacist ideology, drawing upon the centuries-old blueprint of the Jew as scapegoat, denounces Jews as the root of all evil. And this is anti-Semitic trope number 1, the Jew as scapegoat. Levin writes in her book, "To the hammer, everything looks like a nail. To the white supremacist, every evil looks like a Jew." Next slide. Tapping into Christian anti-Semitism, white supremacy perpetuates the accusation that Jews, because of their essentially evil nature, work with the devil, Satan. Next slide. Here is the diabolical Jew at Charlottesville. The banner reads, "Jews are Satan's children," with all of the New Testament proofs to that effect. Next slide. The Tree of Life shooter in Pittsburgh, Robert Bowers, referenced the diabolical Jew as part of his Gab profile. It's been taken down, but you can still find it. This is what he put in his profile. "Jews are the children of Satan," direct quote, John 8:44, "Jesus Christ is come in the flesh." Another white supremacist who may be less known to you, John Earnest, who murdered 1 and wounded 3 at the Chabad Community Center in Poway, California on April 27, 2019. Not coincidentally, the 6th-month anniversary of the assault on the Tree of Life Synagogue expressed the same anti-Semitic trope. Although the Jew who is inspired by demons and Satan will attempt to corrupt your soul with the sin and perversion he spews, remember that you are secure in Christ. Next slide. White supremacy continues to promote alleged Jewish culpability for the death of Jesus. Here again is the Earnest Manifesto. For their persecution of Jews, of Christians of old, members of the early church, Christians of modern-day Syria and Palestine, and Christians in white nations, and here it comes, and finally, for their role in the murder of the Son of Man, that is the Christ. Every Jew, young and old, has contributed to these. For these crimes, they deserve nothing but hell. I will send them there. Next slide. Anti-Semitic trope number 4. White supremacy also disseminates the blood libel myth. In his manifesto, Ernest explained that he wanted to kill Jews to avenge the death in 1475 of Simon of Trent, a young Christian boy who the Jews allegedly murdered for his blood to bake Passover matzah. Here is what he wrote. For their degenerate and abominable practices of sexual perversion and blood libel, you are not forgotten, Simon of Trent. The horror that you and countless children have endured at the hands of the Jews will never be forgiven. Next slide. Echoing now the medieval anti-Semitic canard that Jews poisoned wells to spread the bubonic plague, white supremacy accuses Jews of purposely manufacturing or spreading the COVID-19 virus to make a profit. Jews make people sick to make money. Drawing now from Nazi anti-Semitism, white supremacy brands Jews as a disease-carrying race, dangerous to public health. Look to the right. Jews did not just spread or manufacture the coronavirus. Jews are the virus. And on the left, and this was found at a anti-lockdown demonstration in Columbus, Ohio. People showed up with these banners. Jews are the real plague. Continuing the theme, in this post, there is no MAGA as long as there is a kike infestation. Robert Bowers, the Tree of Life shooter, directly equates Jews with rats. Next slide. Anchored in Nazi anti-Semitism, white supremacy also labels Jews an irredeemably degenerate race. This is anti-Semitic trope number 7. In his manifesto, John Ernest presented a litany of loathsome sins that Jews had committed. For pushing degenerate propaganda in the form of entertainment, for their role in feminism, which has enslaved women in sin, for causing many to fall into sin with their role in peddling pornography, for promoting race mixing. Jews are somehow responsible for all of this. Now, let's sort of summarize what we have seen so far. All these texts and images demonstrate there is nothing original thus far in white supremacist thought about Jews. Built into white supremacist ideology and worldview is a toxic mixture of millennial, pre-Christian, Christian, medieval, and Nazi anti-Semitic foundations. White supremacy has embraced and adopted it all. As early as the 1970s, however, imagine the 1970s, white supremacist ideologues began to coalesce around a new conspiracy theory that has become the overwhelmingly dominant meme of the white supremacist movement. What is that? A secret plot to exterminate the white race. Not surprisingly, Jews are implicated. In this new white supremacist narrative, Jews have surpassed a range of conspirators to become the #1 driving force behind white extinction, a campaign for white extinction. And this conspiracy theory comes in 2 variations: white genocide and the Great Replacement. Of the 2, white genocide is the older and seemingly more extreme in terminology. So let's start there. Since the late, no, go back to the other slide, please, Donna. Since the late 19th, early 20th century, white supremacists, with the avid support of the American eugenics movement, had been prophesying the imminent demographic extinction of the white race, right? This goes back to the 1800s. Now we're on this slide. American eugenicist Madison Grant's 1916, The Passing of the Great Race, had outsized influence on American popular culture, politics, and immigration policy. Grant identified the immigration of, in his view, hereditarily inferior and degenerate non-Nordic peoples as the greatest threat to white America. So we're dealing with a view that is raging in America in 1916, right? Late 19th, early 20th century. In 1978, William Luther Pierce's The Turner Diaries launched many white supremacist groups and inspired domestic terrorism and hate crimes. The Turner Diaries is a shockingly racist novel describing the formation of an all-white utopia. The diary entries depict a white nationalist revolution that overthrows the United States government and culminates in the global genocide of non-whites and Jews. Next slide. In 1995, David Lane, a founding member of the Order, a white supremacist organization, an organization that is mentioned in the Turner Diaries, composed the White Genocide Manifesto. The first to coin the term white genocide, Lane accused Jews of orchestrating a deliberate conspiracy to exterminate the white race. This has been said about the Jewish people since going back to 1995 in white supremacist circles. Tapping into the modern template of a secret international Jewish conspiracy to dominate the world, and here actually we have anti-Semitic trope number 8, Lane proclaimed that the Zionist occupation government controlled the United States and other Western nations. Yes, we are hearing now shades of the protocols of the elders of Zion, absolutely. According to Lane's narrative, the Zionist occupation government was intentionally accelerating white extinction. Jews are intentionally accelerating white extinction by promoting policies of mass immigration, racial integration, interracial marriage, homosexuality, and abortion. In other words, in the white supremacist viewpoint, all progressive policies of which Jews have been associated with many lead to white extinction. And this is why they're unhappy with us. All Western nations are ruled by a Zionist conspiracy to mix, overrun, and exterminate the white race. The Zionist occupation governments of America and other Western nations promote the unnatural act of homosexuality, knowing full well the power of the male instinct for sexual union must be directed toward procreation with females of the same race to ensure racial survival, white racial survival. The Zionist occupation governments of America and other Western nations promote and protect infanticide of healthy white babies, now called abortion, immensely to the detriment of the white race. Notice, reproductive rights are anti-white in this discourse. In subsequent decades, white supremacist ideologues named additional strategies by which Jews have accelerated white extinction, including feminism and multiculturalism. Multiculturalism, from this viewpoint, is anti-white. White supremacists identify 1965 as the beginning of the end for the white race. Why 1965? That was the year Jews enacted, because of our power, the Voting Rights Act and the Immigration and Nationality Act, which opened up immigration to the United States. It ended the national origins quotas of 1924. At least since 2017, however, this slide is correct, white supremacist discourse has singled out white genocide through unrestrained immigration as the primary source of white victimization and rage. We must understand what rage there is. Both Bowers and Ernest, the two shooters, were steeped in this mythic belief of Jewish responsibility for white genocide, particularly with regard to Jewish support for Muslim immigration. As a result, they felt driven to kill Jews. Next slide. Here are two posts from Bowers. Open your eyes. It's the filthy, evil Jews bringing the filthy, evil Muslims into the country. Stop the kikes, then worry about the Muslims. Next slide. Here's a screenshot of his actual post, which is sort of chilling. Highest likes to bring invaders in that kill our people. I can't see by and watch my people get slaughtered. Screw your optics. I'm going in. Next slide. And this from Ernest's manifesto. Is it worth it for me to live a comfortable life at the cost of international Jewry sealing the doom of my race? I willingly sacrifice my future, the future of having a fulfilling job, a loving wife, and amazing kids. I sacrifice this for the sake of my people, our people. I would die 1,000 times over to prevent the doomed fate that the Jews have planned for my race. So we all understand Jews are responsible for white genocide. Now let's turn our attention to the second form of the white extinction conspiracy theory, the Great Replacement. Although this term, the Great Replacement, sounds so much more innocuous than white genocide, the danger of this conspiracy theory cannot be underestimated. Both the 2019 Christchurch murderer, Brenton Tarrant, and in the very same year, the 2019 El Paso murderer, Patrick Crusius, cited the Great Replacement, this theory, to justify their massacre of Muslims and Hispanics. In 2012, Renaud Camus wrote Le Grand Replacement. Camus claimed that a global elite was colluding to replace the white French population and culture with non-white peoples and foreign cultures. In Camus' conspiracy theory, the entire white population of Europe was in grave danger of being completely overrun by the mass immigration of Black and Muslim immigrants from Africa and the Middle East. Camus famously said in an interview, the Great Replacement is very simple. You have one people, and in the span of a generation, you have a different people. As early as 2015, American white supremacists adopted the Great Replacement conspiracy theory with a significant adaptation. And yes, you guessed it. This secret plot to replace the white race through a rising tide of non-white immigration was organized and manipulated by Jews. Something that Camus did not say, but this was added in by American white supremacy. Now, let's watch this short but chilling video from Charlottesville, and we will discuss the true significance of Jews will not replace us.
Jews will not replace us!
Thank you. I know this, no matter how many times I've seen this video, it is still incredibly chilling. And in a second, we'll get to Jews will not replace us, but I also want you to see, we also included it in blood and soil. So you see now we all get, we now understand what these marchers were really trying to convey. This, the white supremacist chant at Charlottesville, Jews will not replace us, is a direct reference to the Great Replacement conspiracy theory. Everybody with me? And with this context in mind, we now understand how disturbing this chant really is. It's not that Jews will take away jobs or anything like that. These white supremacist marchers were angrily accusing Jews of masterminding the conspiracy to replace the white race. Let me put it another way. Jews are responsible for America's downfall as a white majority nation. I know it takes a second for all that to sink in. Next slide. That's it. Thank you, Donna. In his seminal 2017 essay, Skin in the Game, How Anti-Semitism Animates White Nationalism, and this is, by the way, is one of the articles that you were given to read, which you can read at any point. Civil rights activist Eric Ward warns that the current white supremacist worldview perceives Jews as the premier and most powerful enemy of the white race. Now, how could that be? Without invisible Jewish power influence, white supremacists claim none of the successes of the civil rights movement, Black progress, feminism's advances, the achievement of LGBTQ rights, or even the election of a Black president could have been possible. Here's Ward. Some secret cabal, some mythological power must be manipulating the social order behind the scenes. This diabolical evil must control television, banking, entertainment, education, and even Washington, D.C. What is, it must be brainwashing white people, rendering them racially unconscious. What is this arch nemesis of the white race, whose machinations have prevented the natural and inevitable imposition of white supremacy? It is, of course, the Jews. Let me unpack that a little bit more. Contemporary white supremacist discourse blames Jews as the greatest obstacle to white supremacy and the establishment of a whites-only ethno-state. According to the logic of white supremacist thought, it is Jews alone, and it is Jews and Jews alone who stand in the way. Ward goes further to identify another reason for white supremacy's hostility toward Jews. The white supremacist belief system clearly and forcefully names Jews as non-white. In other words, in the white supremacist imagination, Jews do not belong to the white race. Jews are an alien and loathsome race all their own. Quoting Ward, at the bedrock of the white nationalist movement is an explicit claim that Jews are a race of their own, and that their ostensible position as white folks in the US represents the greatest trick the devil ever played. But precisely because Jews are able to pass as white, Jews present an existential threat to the white race from within. Ward, Jews, despite and indeed because of the fact that they are often read as white, are a different, unassimilable enemy race that must be exposed, defeated, and ultimately eliminated. In the wholly exclusionary white supremacist vision for America, there is no place for Blacks or people of color, nor is there any place for Jews in a whites-only ethno-state. Okay, that's the end of the slide. So Don, if we could take it away from your screen. I'd like to make some conclusions and then we'll get to questions. Okay, so in conclusion, anti-Semitism not only pervades the far right, anti-Semitism sits at the theoretical core of white supremacist ideology. In the white supremacist belief system, Jews are the principal and most powerful enemy of the white race. Jews are responsible for white genocide and the Great Replacement. Jews are the accelerators of white extinction. Jews stand in the way of white power, white supremacy, and a whites-only ethno-state. Jews do not belong to the white race. Perverting this country in all sorts of devilish and degenerate ways, Jews are the greatest threat to the people, culture, and values of white America. But white supremacist anti-Semitism is not just vile. This we all understand. It is lethal. White supremacists have long targeted Jews for violence, even death. From the 1915 lynching of Leo Frank to physical attacks on Jews in the 1920s, incited by the anti-Semitic invective of Henry Ford and Father Charles Coughlin, to the Ku Klux Klan bombings of synagogues, Jewish community centers, and rabbis' homes in the 1950s and 60s, to the 1984 assassination of Jewish radio host Alan Berg, to the 12 white supremacist attacks on Jews or Jewish institutions between 1994 and 2014, there is sadly, nothing new about white supremacist violence against Jews. We must all understand that it did not just appear out of thin air at Pittsburgh, Poway, or at the Capitol assault on January 6th. It has always been there. In her essay, The History of White Power, historian Kathleen Blue suggests that American public awareness suffers from a national amnesia about white supremacist domestic terrorism. Despite the 1995 white supremacist bombing of the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building in Oklahoma City, and we all need to, if we don't know that, we need to understand that that bombing done by Timothy McVeigh. Timothy McVeigh was a white supremacist, and he was inspired to do what he did because of the Turner Diaries. That bombing of the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building in Oklahoma City, which was an act of domestic terrorism that killed 168 people, including 19 children. Despite that, the American public preferred a rosier narrative. Ballou observes, white power activism gathered strength post-1995, even as much of the country came to believe in a colorblind, multicultural, or post-racial United States. Is there also a great fog of forgetting within the American Jewish community about white supremacist anti-Semitism? In any case, we can no longer afford such amnesia or the luxury of wishing for a prettier historical narrative. White supremacist anti-Semitism presents, in my view, a clear and present danger to the American Jewish community. It is not hidden, it's in plain sight, and our American Jewish community must act boldly, bravely, and forthrightly. I want to thank everybody for your kind attention, and I'm happy to address questions and answer whichever questions that I can answer. Yes, just
It's Judy Jacobson. I
Yes.
remember my mother telling me in 33, when Hitler came to power, there were many who just said, not to worry, it will blow over, just wait. And so it took from 33, if my date would be correct, to the final solution, which occurred in 44, 45, when people finally woke up and said, hey, this may be a bigger deal than we think. So as you were talking, and I was thinking, is it not where the emphasis has to be for us? If Hitler wasn't powerful till he became the government. Once he became the government, it was all over. That's where we need our impact. If our government denies, or as one of the leaders said, you know, there was no Holocaust as of yesterday or the day before, and that becomes more and more the way of functioning, we got big troubles.
You make a great point.
Thank you.
A great point. And it's that attitude, that view of this, this is going to blow over. That approach was a Jewish approach in Nazi Germany. We know what happened. And it's also been an approach here, that it's going to blow over, that we don't want to see it. We want to minimize it. And, you know, given every, you know, just, you know, and the point, you know, think about in 1939, think of the Madison Square, the neo-Nazi rally at Madison Square Garden, you know, 20,000 neo-Nazis